As the embodiment of a sinister legend, the Bodak's history is steeped with macabre secrets. A creature born from the darkest recesses of the abyss, serving as a loyal, unholy servant of Orcus. The Bodak is one of my favorite creatures in all of D&D. They are incredibly dangerous and have some of the creepiest lore, which makes them the perfect candidate for DMs who like to run darker campaigns like myself. So today, we're going to go over the Bodak, its stats, its lore, and why it's perfect for a darker style of game. The Bodak is a CR6 creature with a stat block that looks underwhelming at first glance. But the longer you look at it, you'll realize that this creature can quickly lead to a TPK. They have an armor class of 15 with 58 average hit points, which puts them in the lower range of CR6 creatures. But that's pretty much where the good news ends, because the Bodak has some incredible resistances and immunities which make up for its lower health pool. In fact, out of the 13 total damage types in 5th edition, the Bodak resists or straight up ignores 8 of them. This is made especially rough since you'll likely encounter the Bodak at earlier levels where most of your damage will fall into one of those damage types. Which is really unfortunate since you're going to want to end this combat as quickly as possible to prevent having to deal with the Bodak's abilities, which is where we're looking next. The Bodak has 2 actions. First, a fist attack that deals 1d4 plus 2d8 plus 2 damage on a hit, but if I'm being honest, that is almost always ignored for the Bodak's other action, Withering Gaze. The Bodak looks at an enemy it can see within 60 feet and forces them to make a Constitution saving throw, taking 4d10 damage or half as much on a successful save. This alone deals on average 22 points of damage if a creature fails their save. But considering the average hit points of a 6th level creature is somewhere around 45, that's a pretty significant chunk of damage. But that might sound underwhelming. I mean, everyone knows the Constitution saving throws are notoriously bad, and honestly, the likelihood of anyone failing them is pretty slim. And I would agree with you. However, the Bodak has 2 other abilities that make up for that in strides. Firstly, we have the Aura of Annihilation. Any creature that ends their turn within 30 feet of this battle area automatically takes 5 necrotic damage. 5 damage is 5 damage, but 30 feet is a pretty good distance and will likely encompass the majority of your party, meaning that 5 damage is more like 10 or 15. This is one of the main reasons you want to finish combat as quickly as possible, as this can very quickly add up, especially if you have multiple party members close enough to be affected by this. But the second ability I was talking about takes the Aura of Annihilation and blows it out of the water, because the Death Gaze ability is really what you should be afraid of. When a creature starts its turn within 30 feet of the Bodak and can see it, they must make a Constitution saving throw as the Bodak stares into their soul with its own lifeless eyes. On a failed save, a creature takes 3d10 damage, but if a creature fails the save by 5 or more, they immediately drop to 0 hit points. You can literally drop dead just from looking at a Bodak. A character can avert their eyes to prevent this from actually occurring, or close their eyes. However, if you do decide to do that, then any attack you make against the Bodak would obviously have disadvantage, which is another way that the Bodak deals with having such a low hit point total, as well as a lower AC. Between the Aura of Annihilation and the Death Gaze, the Bodak has 2 abilities that just flat out happen whenever a creature starts their turn or ends their turn within 30 feet of them. If you've ever been on YouTube, you've probably seen videos of Luigi wins by doing nothing. This is effectively the D&D equivalent. Speaking of YouTube, if you're enjoying this video and you haven't subscribed yet, I have a question. Why? Anyways, the Bodak gets 2 super powerful abilities without having to expend anything, and afterwards they have an entire turn to do whatever they want. So realistically, a character has 2 options. They can risk the Death Gaze to try to get out of combat quicker, thereby reducing the damage they would take overall. Or they could risk closing their eyes, giving themselves disadvantage on any attack, and risk combat taking longer, guaranteeing that they take more damage from its aura, but circumventing the potential for instant death. Realistically, if you ever find yourself face to face with a Bodak, the best way to deal with it is from range. But with the heavy damage resistances and flat out immunities, the Bodak can be a challenge regardless of your ranged options. And as for melee heavy parties, it might just be better to reevaluate the situation, come back when you're a little better prepared. But now that you know what the Bodak is capable of, let's talk about why it's perfect for a darker plot point in your campaign. Spreading the dark influence of the Demon Lord Orcus. Bodaks are extensions of the Demon Lord's will, leaving nothing but death and destruction in their wake. These once devoted followers of Orcus underwent a horrific dark ritual, leaving behind their former lives to become walking abominations, spreading Orcus's will across the land. Nothing more than sentient husks devoid of their former selves, these unnatural creatures cling to vague memories of their past lives, seeking out both allies and foes from its past existence to obliterate them. Only faint echoes of their former self remain hidden under layers and layers of abyssal corruption. But these are purely echoes of the person that they once were, for all Bodaks share an all-consuming compulsion to erase any connection to their previous life. The reason I like Bodaks so much is because their lore are perfectly built to scale up in a campaign alongside your character. Imagine the players finding a town plagued with a mystery of people going missing. Eventually, they find out it's the work of a Bodak and have to find a way to solve the problem. They eventually solve the problem and find connections to the Demon Lord. Eventually, the players learn more about the Demon Lord, and eventually Orcus pops up, and bada bing, bada boom, I just wrote your entire next campaign. With one monster. Okay, well, maybe not your entire campaign, but you gotta admit it is a pretty damn cool monster to base an entire campaign off of. But anyways, that is the Bodak. If you want to see more cool monsters for D&D, you can check out this playlist in one of these corners. And if you don't mind, I would love to hear your thoughts on this, so leave a comment below and let me know what you thought. I read every comment, almost always reply, and who knows, I might even feature your comment in the next video. Thank you very much for watching, I hope you enjoyed, and I will see you on Friday.